Welcome everyone.
That's a shout talk.
Okay, my bad. There we go. Welcome everyone to another Concord and Victory talk. Today we're joined by Wilson, who is currently a student at Imperial College. Wilson, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what your thoughts on Imperial, and could you please tell us a bit about your Quest scholarship?
Absolutely. So, hi everyone, and I have actually prepared a slide, so it should actually tell a bit about me as well. So, you probably can tell I'm not originally from the UK. I came to the UK when I was 12. I'm originally came from China, and I studied my GCSE and A levels in the UK in the very nice Sunside coast of Eastbourne College. Don't know if anyone heard about this place. It's near Brighton. And so currently I'm pursuing a degree called the Civil Environmental Engineering at Imperial College London. And that's the only sort of undergraduate plus master degree we offer at our Department of Civil Environmental Engineer, as you might have realised. And then also, so as part of my Quest scholarship, which I'm going to introduce quite soon, I am an intern infrastructure engineer at Atkins Realis, which is what we call engineering consultancy in London. So it is basically in civil engineering, we've got the contractors, and the consultants basically do the design, and the contractors have the drawings and build it. So I'm working for the consultant on that side, but I'll later introduce the whole spectrum of civil engineering and the work around our industry. And okay, right, let's move on. So I was going to give you a bit of introduction about why Imperial and also what sort of things I recommend about my university. I'm not saying everyone should sort of agree with me. I'm not saying, Imperial is the best college. I have to say Imperial offers unique opportunities that many other university doesn't. And obviously Imperial at the moment is second in the world for university rankings from QS 2025, and also Imperial is the first in the UK and Europe, which is a bonus point. Anyway, so we've got a global student community to start with. Obviously, you can see from myself, and when you walk into a London university particularly, I would like to share that it is majority international students and people all from all around the world. You see, I'm not talking only about students. I'm talking about staff members. I'm talking about PhDs. I'm talking about everyone you see at universities. They're mainly around the world. And then also you can see from our pictures from the right. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Can you see my cursor? Not really. Well, that's fine. Well, on the top right corner, that's a swimming pool. It's not a swimming pool, guys. So it is what we call a hydrodynamics lab. That is a very advanced sort of lab equipment we have from our Department of Civil Environmental Engineering. What we do there is basically we've got these massive sort of I can't say all the technical words which nobody will understand. It's basically a massive instrument that produces a lot of waves, and then you can sort of monitor the waves as it goes through the water and a lot of the structures, how the structure interacts, such as a wind turbine or oil rig in the water. So that would be sort of one of our lab experiment that you will be doing as well when you join university. And also down there, that is the materials lab, and in the department we also have material, which you might think is not the most related thing to civil engineering, but also we study that as part of our course, and it's mainly research into construction materials and green concrete, for example. And then there's a lot of other things that I'm not going to go too much into details about, but obviously Imperial is extremely research and innovation focused. We want our students to be sort of both in the mindset of researcher. I'm talked about that in a few seconds, but also innovative. So if you have your ideas, we've got a lot of support that actually sort of guide you to that process. And there's a lot of facilities I'm going to talk a bit later. And also, one thing I want to make it really clear is that the reason why I chose Imperial, firstly, is because I like civil engineering. Oxford, Cambridge doesn't have particularly civil engineering at itself. Cambridge has engineering general, and Oxford has I believe it's called engineering science. I don't know if it's changed. But Imperial is in London, and the experience you get from going into London and studying in the university is completely different to going into, say, Cambridge or Oxford, where you have a whole sort of city that sort of has all the university stuff in it, if you see what I mean. So it's very different, the university life, because you sort of have the feeling of commuting to work or commuting to colleges when you actually go into university, and also sort of the feeling of society, or actually when you grow up or when you graduate, what sort of world we'll be going into, sort of things. And that's very different to studying in a city that's just filled with university, if you see what I mean. And then okay, so let's talk a bit about my life at Imperial. I know that Mr. Want to be civil engineer guy would be quite interested into that. You can see a lot of different things. That is not my lecture, actually. So I'm not going to put a boring picture of my lecture, although lecture does take a majority of our time in Imperial. We call this thing called tutorials, which is apart from lectures. So every day we might have a 3-hour lecture plus 1 hour tutorials or something like that, where the professor or the lecturer will be there, plus a lot of PhD students who study in that area will be helping you to guide through some work that you're doing, either it is some group work, homework, etc. And then I think the most unique thing that civil engineering and many engineering degree provides is that the group and individual coursework that you might be able to experience, I think, and the field trips. So mainly courseworks are based upon design projects. That's what civil engineer does pretty much when you are working in consultancies. And then a lot of things based on field trips. So you see the top, you can see my cursor. Can you? Okay. The top left one, that's me standing next to a thing called the total station, which is a thing where is called surveying, which is basically you map a topology of a ground. It's the first thing you usually do when you go on a site. That's one thing we learned in year 1. So I'm currently in year 3, so it's a 4-year degree. I'm halfway through nearly. And then the top right corner is when we went to a beautiful place near Wales. I believe it's called Minehead, I think. That place where we study a lot of geology, not geography, geology, about the sand and the sandy beaching area. Geology is also a very important aspect of civil engineering. We call it geotechnics because we're all studying about the strength of the soil. And then it's quite interesting, I have to say, wearing, high hat plus high vis, walking into just a very small town, I would call it village. And a lot of people just look at us and be like, what are you doing, sort of things. It's quite interesting. And then the bottom right corner, you can see that's all of our students there as well as my classmates. We are working on a real construction project. This is a very unique thing that only civil engineer students will be sort of experience. I believe many universities does it now. It's called constructionarium. You're very welcome to sort of Google it. Construction plus arium. I can't remember how you spell it correctly, but what you do is basically you are given a scaled down actual project. So we are building a thing called Don Valley, which is the picture here. This is part of a stadium sort of seating, and the bottom of that is a massive concrete slab. And all of those we have to pour ourselves, design ourselves, tie the rebars, all that sort of things, all by ourselves. Obviously, there will be technicians or what they call contractors, supervisors on site to help us. But all that will be done by ourselves. We'll be taking off the formwork on that time. So it's quite a sort of hands-on experience. I don't know if you guys know if design technology as A level. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that sort of things. But obviously, a larger sort of scale and quite interesting projects. And then next 2 pictures. That's sort of less interesting, I have to say, because we're not going anywhere. But those 2 pictures are sort of the majority of our coursework, or what they call group work. So a majority of engineering students will conduct group works, either it's design, calculations, all that sort of things. But at the end, we have to present. And presentation skills, I think, is so important when it comes to sort of university work, because especially for engineering students, because in the future you'll be working in groups and you have to share your ideas to your clients, to other people, and then I think presentation skills are so important when it comes to that. And then next is a bit of extracurricular activities. So Imperial is research work focused, but they also encourage you to do several different sort of work that relates to sort of volunteering, which what I'm doing right now as a international student representative. And also there's like around 300 different societies. Don't quote me on that number, I'm pretty not sure, but I think more than 300. There's probably half of them are sort of culture based. So you've got the Chinese society, Indian society, Russian society, for example. Then you also get a lot of sporting societies such as rowing, all the traditional sports, rugby, hockey, that when I was in high school I did it as well. And then so these pictures of me sort of presenting and sort of chairing a panel that's also sort of a society I'm working with. And so I think it's a great opportunity, because that's also why I recommend studying in London, is because you get this feeling that you're not only in the university, you're sort of in the society when you meet people outside university, and then you also sort of get the real life feeling when you graduate, if you see what I mean. And then a bit about application, but I'm not gonna dwell too much about that. I've already it's all on the website, and you're very welcome to sort of have a look. I think the main thing I would like to share, the final takeaway, of course, but I think the thing I would like to share first is about the Quest scholarships. So this is Quest scholarships. This for example, this PowerPoint is done by another colleague of mine. His name is Hugo. So he's also a Quest scholar. I'm a Quest scholar. What we did was, Quest scholarship is a scholarship offered by Institute of Civil Engineers. That is the British, basically, institute of anyone who is related to civil engineering. And civil engineering, I have to say, is not only about building buildings. That's what I thought when I came. It's a lot of different sections. We've got environment engineering, we've got materials, we've got transport studies. That's also part of engineers, civil engineering. Transport study does cover a lot, not only like roads, highway, trains, airports. Also a lot about like shipments, goods transfer, or so on, and many about structures and fluids and geotechnics, the traditional how we think civil engineering is like. And then so what ICE does, Institute of Civil Engineers, they offer opportunity that firstly gives you a bonus annual payments of £1,500, but also the most important thing, it gives you a work placement every summer from your study. That means if you do a 4-year course, you get 3 times of the internships in the same company. If you do 3 years, that's 2 times. And then majority of the time, it's usually when it's like 99% chance that you will work for that company that you being doing the internship for. And that's basically, in a simple way of putting this, if you are successful in applying that scholarship, you are basically guaranteed a job, which is, I think, a very sort of reassuring feeling when it comes to it, because my mates, year one, we were just like, oh, we don't want to worry about internships. Well, I was the only few people plus the other Quest scholars to actually go to interns. Year 2, everyone realized, oh, right, we have to apply. A lot of people didn't go well, because that is a sort of common misconception that what you study in university is not exactly what you be doing in work, if you see what I mean. So you've got to have some sort of experience in work in order to know what the industry sort of are looking for. And then now I'm in year 3, everyone's so panicking about, oh God, what I'm gonna do, if I'm gonna get a job or not. And all the Quest scholars are sort of quite reassured that we've sort of have at least one job to go to at last. And then you have to apply during upper 6. I got this opportunity from UCAS. I've got the email from UCAS saying, we heard that you're doing civil engineering, because that's what was submitted on UCAS, and here's a scholarship that if you want to apply, please do. I believe other engineering degrees does similar things by different sort of organizations, so please do have a check. But the Civil Engineers Institute does offer this. And then so that's just about the Quest scholarship. But I think I need to say a bit more about why you need to apply for Quest, but other than work, I think it's the fact that I don't know if you guys know the sort of the pathway after you graduate as an engineer. So in the UK, after you graduate, to become a graduate engineer, blah blah blah, so on, and there is a thing called chartership. I don't know if any of you guys heard of that. Okay, see, perfect. You're going to get nodding. I didn't know chartership exists when I joined the university. So chartership is basically what the sort of the generalized engineering world sort of depicted as you are qualified as an engineer and you take full responsibility for what you do, basically. Basically, throughout most charterships, I'm talking about civil engineers, chartered civil engineers, chartered highway engineers, blah, blah. They would go through a process that reviews all your work experience, and then if they're happy with it, they will, in a simple way, they will you basically become chartered. And then, but a lot of other chartered engineers, like chartered structural engineers, will require exams. But that's basically to the point where you say, right, I become a proper engineer, and then from now on, everything I do, I take full responsibility. So that means if the building falls down, you take full responsibility of killing a lot of people. Bad way of saying this, but that's how it works. And chartership go through every single institute. So, chartered civil engineers goes to Institute of Civil Engineers, chartered mechanical engineers go to the IMechE, so on. And then basically the scholarship gives you a experience to experience the ICE a lot more before you have to worry about chartership. And I think you sort of get to see a lot of people there. You talk to when you go on to work during internship. You talk to those graduate engineers, assistant engineers who are worried about getting chartered, and you sort of clear the pathway. And the key of becoming chartered, from what I heard from my internship, is basically the more earlier you prepare for, the quicker you're going to get chartered, because it's mainly based on work experience. It's not like it's basically the more time you work for, the more likely you're going to get chartered. And that usually takes around 5 to 10 years. It depends on, the different aspect of what you're working on. And so I think that's what Quest scholarships offer. And also Quest scholarship does not apply to which university you apply to. So it's absolutely independent to university you apply to. You can go to any university that offers a accredited civil engineering degree. I believe it's accredited by ICE, but you have to double check on the website. There's a QR code everyone can scan. If anyone missed that, you're very welcome to scan it, and that basically takes you to a website about the Quest scholarship itself. And then and also the application process is the following. So you will be basically sort of writing a normal application form, like what you do in most internship application, covering your interest and passion and so on. And then you will be sort of asked to choose 5 different companies. And the companies could be contracting, consulting, something related to policy making. Is sort of another sort of pathway engineering takes. So I don't know if you heard about environmental agency. Oh, perfect. Gosh, you guys know a lot more when I was your age. So environmental agency, that's sort of a authority, sort of what I can't call it government because it's a company, but it's sort of a authority that sort of overlooks many of basically every project in the UK, checks for environmental compliance is perfect in simple ways. And you're very welcome to choose that company, or you would be designing, such as what I'm doing as a consultant, or you'll be doing a building works, just as what my colleague Hugo is doing. That's actually Heathrow Airport. London Heathrow Airport resurfacing off the runway, and as you can see Heathrow's background on there, it's on his high-vis jacket. Contracting is hardworking, it's tiresome, you have to work at night, a lot of difficulties on site. You have to live quite far away from where you live originally. You go around quite a lot of different places, but it's a very different experience compared to if you like practical work, if you like get your boots on the ground and start digging and start doing contracting, then you're very welcome to do it. On the other hand, most people decide to go into consulting because it's less tiresome. We work normal 95 hours sort of things, and then we sort of get a work-life balance slightly better than the contracting. And then obviously another thing for those mostly academically driven people, so that it might mean that if you want to pursue a PhD degree afterwards, after your undergraduate and postgraduate studies, that could also mean that if you're just purely interested in research, because Imperial basically is training researchers. The more I believe myself that everything we study are more research focused other than sort of work focused, if you see what I mean. Because once you understand the fundamental ideology or fundamental logic through the research process, then it's quite simple to understand how industry works when you come to work. And then there's a lot of things. Many universities offer this. It's called UROP or IROP. So it's basically the undergraduate research opportunity or the international research opportunity. So it's during the summer, instead of going into a company to work with, you'll be assigned, or you sort of find a supervisor that's a staff member at the university. And then you sort of ask them, do you have any ongoing research I can be helping with? And any other PhDs that's been working on a project that needs a bit of help, and sort of you go and sort of help them, assist them through any sort of research process. And that's also quite a fun thing. You get to use a lot of fancy stuff, as you can see on the picture on the right. You can see you can use the fluid lab, you can use the structures lab, so on. That's basically we broke a concrete. Well, not we. Someone has to test the concrete to destruction and see how it fails. And then Imperial also offers a lot of sort of opportunities if you graduate, for graduate schemes. You can see there's a website of it, but obviously that's sort of life beyond Imperial. And that's pretty much it. Sorry, I have to run through things very quickly. So if you have any other questions, you're very welcome to sort of shoot me with that.
That was very good, Wilson. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
We've got a couple of questions that we're going to ask, I think.
Absolutely.
I'll start off. Sustainability is quite a big word at the minute. It's quite a big focus. And of course, your degree is environmental and civil engineering, I think it is. How much does sustainability come into play when you're working in the companies and on your work in the lectures and things like that?
Okay, so I always say to people, civil engineering and our industry, construction industry, counts for around 60% of our carbon footprint around the UK, now probably 70%. That counts for every infrastructure we built, anything that God didn't build, if you believe in God or anything like that. So sustainability has been a major issue in our industry plus work, I have to say, yes. The main focus right now we are trying to tackle is how we reduce any process we use in constructing in order to sort of reduce the amount of carbon footprint, to reduce the amount of other greenhouse gas emissions, and so on. And I think also another important thing is sustainability is not only about the environment. I think that's sort of the concepts I got a misunderstanding when I joined university. Sustainability is also about people. Sustainability is also about economics. And it's very important to consider environment, social, and economic benefits when doing any decisions in work or in sort of projects. So what Imperial does is during a lot of design projects that we talk about, when there's a lot of ways, this old way of saying like all roads leads to Rome or something like that. But is when designing a project, there are like 2,000 ways of doing it. But there's probably the one most optimum way that reduce your efforts and probably reduce waste. And that's very important. And what engineer does, and what Imperial and many engineering universities teaching you, is how to find that particular solution. And it may not be the best solution, but it might not be, it could be very expensive, but very environmental friendly. It could be, very cheap and not environmental friendly. And there's nothing there's nothing that you can do one method suits all sort of things. And that's what engineers basically doing for the rest of their life if you choose to become an engineer. And I think that's what sustainability is about. It's about balancing different things. And most of the time, I think, is you have to seek a compromise. It's very difficult to actually find the best method. So you have to do a lot of sort of compromise, talk to people, calculations, so on, to sort of find that best method.
Thank you.
I've got a bit of a follow-on question from that,
Yeah.
which is, in your university degree at the moment, do you see Imperial including topics that incorporate recent advancements in technologies,
So yes.
including obviously sustainability? Now it's just a growing concern. So
Okay, yeah. So that's actually quite interesting. So what happened was, it's a quite interesting story. When I joined Imperial, when I was in year one, there was a major change in syllabus. There was, I think, there was a major change every year. I just call it major because I found it quite shocking. It's basically every year the exam board, or the chair of governors and whatever you call them, the important people basically come together and they talk about the most important sort of changes that we've discovered in sort of our industry. I don't know if you guys heard about a thing called HS2.
yes.
Perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, so HS2, I can't, it's a very controversial thing. I'm not going to comment on how well it did, but HS2, Crossrail, London Olympics, and it's not recent London Olympics, but Crossrail is, Elizabeth line is, HS2 is, and we are basically incorporating a lot of them onto our project. So we have to, criticize how HS2 did. We have to criticize how Crossrail did, for example. And also, there's a lot of things that's been ongoing research, such as it's called computational optimizations of London Underground step-free access. That's also talking about social sustainabilities and so on. So a lot of projects that we are doing right now, sort of coursework or sort of group work that we're doing right now, is actually very sort of, I think, very, very advanced. Sort of we're talking about now and the future, if you see what I mean. So we're not sort of focusing on the past, but there's a slight sort of, I have to say, it's sort of a fact I have to explain to everyone in civil engineering that sort of most people will be quite shocked when they're first faced with it. So the fact is, the civil engineering industry is a very conservative industry. That's my opinion. The reason for that is because if you don't build well, someone's going to get killed. As simple as that. So it's a very risky life that you're going to take to sort of incorporate innovative solutions unless it's been tested otherwise. So, for example, there are, our department has many research into sustainable materials in concrete, but the major thing that not a lot of people is using it, also in carbon capture, a lot of environmental fancy technologies that's basically going to, in researching or in theory, is going to basically chuck it into water and boom, it's going to save the world sort of things. That's pretty much how the research is. The research world basically has all the solutions to the world, for my opinion. But because the industry has many concerns, such as nobody's used it before, how are you going to prove it's in theory that's going to work? What if it's in reality? If, say, you chuck that chemicals into 1 cubic meter of water, it's going to work. But what if I chuck into River Thames? Is it really going to work? Sort of thing. So I think that is quite a sort of I can't have misconception, but it's a fact in our industry, particularly in civil engineering, the fact that we are risking people's life if we choose innovative solutions. So I think for our particular industry, the research and the industries are quite sort of going into sort of 2 pathways, not really intersecting. But the fact that you know about the recent development in research, what basically means in 100, or not 100 years time, 50 years time, let's say, that's what the industry will be looking like in the future. So that's sort of big time gap compared to, say, biosciences and many other industries that people might go and work with. But that's how civil engineering works. But also, I think it is good that we are learning the majority of our future in engineering, because I think that's when 50 years later, I mean, both if you are deciding to pursue an engineering degree, I'm sure you and I will be working. If you decide to become an engineer, we'll be working sort of a higher level or sort of decision-making jobs. And because we know our research when we go into universities, that's when we say, right, we're going to try use that, and perhaps we might be able to save the world. So I think that's the sort of feeling that you get when you're at Imperial and many other research university.
Thank you, Wilson. I think I'm going to end on one question,
Yeah.
and it's going to be, so if you were able to redesign any building or piece of infrastructure, what would it be?
Okay, I've got asked several times that question, and I've got 5 different answers. I'm going to choose the one I just talked about. It's going to be HS2 definitely. Sadly. So why particularly so? I have to say HS2 is a major, very important infrastructure we have in the UK, and basically. Well, let's say statistically, 60% of our graduates work some way, somehow in HS2. It's either geotechnics, structures, highways, so on. Not highways, sorry, transport. So it is a major infrastructure in the UK, and also there's a very straightforward reason. I think engineers are slightly frustrated about, but we can't change that. Is the policies that's stopping civil engineers that's actually advancing forward in the speed that we want it to be. It's not really, I can't comment about politics. I'm not a politician, but I believe everyone has a reason to do something. So I'm not commenting about the policy that the government is making, but just think about, for example, when they were doing HS2, there was on the news, £100 million bat tunnel that was being built, and the bat tunnel basically is they're running through a lovely place in Buckinghamshire. I think it's near where you are, guys, or something like that area, in Warwickshire or Buckinghamshire. And then they encounter a lot of bats, and bats are basically protected by law in the UK. And any form of harm, any form of destruction to bat habitats or bats itself are against the law. So we decide to build £100 million tunnel to protect the bats. And, £100 million spent elsewhere will probably become another new project in many other countries, I think. So I think engineers at that point has to consider what, you have to compromise with, you might have the most efficient, most economically designed projects. You might have the most beautiful built railway, but perhaps government will be saying no. It's just simple as that. I think I'm not in the hands of changing that. I'm not a politician, but I think all engineers has to be sort of realizing that engineering is part of politics, and our ideas, although for us it's probably the most efficient ones, might get stopped. And if I was going to rebuild HS2, well, the current policy has changed. A lot of environmental policies has been scrapped. But I would say that I would definitely build HS2 in a better way, that we don't have to spend £100 million building a bat tunnel.
Okay. I've got one final question for you, which is, as an aspiring potential Quest scholarship applicant, what is one piece of advice that you'd give to a Quest applicant, and what is something that you believe made your application stand out?
Okay, well, I think the very simple way of putting it is you got to know the difference between a contracting and consultant. That's the first thing I did wrong when I was applying. I did not know there was two different part of the company, not part of the company, part of the industry. I just generally thought, because the country where I come from is all government owned. These companies does the design and the constructing itself. So I think you have to. It's not only about know the difference between these two. It's quite straightforward. I just explained, but it's to know a lot about the industry itself. I think many universities are not going to teach you how to build, say, the building behind me, the virtual background behind me. This is Queen's Tower in Imperial. It's the only Victorian building left over in our building, and that's Skempton, I believe. That's our building. No, sorry, that's not Skempton. This is Skempton. Never mind. Anyway, Skempton is our department building. Anyway, so they won't teach you how to build buildings. In university, they're not going to be like, right, we're going to I'm going to teach you how to pour concrete. That's not how it works. But the industries, especially contractors are expecting you to know some sort of knowledge into that before joining to universities. So that's why majority of the contractors I applied to did not give me opportunity for interview, because I didn't show any opportunities or experience I have back in constructing, if you see what I mean. So I didn't know how to pour concrete until I had that project in university. So if you are interested in hands-on sort of D&T experience, I have to say, then try and sort of get into, it could be sort of through YouTube videos if you want. That's also works, trust me. The amount of YouTube videos I've been watching through university is enormous. Also, you can go to, if you are having contacts in the industry, you're very welcome to sort of go to the site if site clearance allows, and then sort of just, you don't have to do anything, but watching them doing it is extremely beneficial, I think. That's for contracting. And from consulting, that's quite different to contracting. Designing, I'm talking about. Consulting is designing. So designers, you want to show them the holistic mindset that you have when considering tackling a problem. So when, like I just said, HS2, there's a lot of decisions you can make, a lot of decisions you have to compromise. What is your way of thinking? What is your priorities? What's your priority to, sort of things? When you sort of think of stuff very systematically and present your ideas sort of in a very systematic way when interviewing, and also talk about how you develop these thinkings or sort of the skills or work experience you get that harms your experience like that in your application during the Quest scholarships, I think the consultants will quite like that. And also consulting is about communication. Consulting is talking about your design to many people that might not like it. That's how life is. There's a lot of people that just going to be like, we don't like your idea, no matter how well you put it. And to convince them that your idea is the best is difficult. And the method of communication, and if you have any background sort of work experience talking about communications, or training about communication skills, I think that's also important. And all about contracting is about leadership. You as an engineer, although you might be younger than everyone on the site, you will be tasked to guide all the laborers or builders, what we call in some common ways, to do their job. And they might not trust you because you're much younger than them. But then how would you lead them? How would you tell them what to do without them saying no? That's also a communication skills, but that's more about leadership than sort of in the contracting world, and about sort of communicating, playing, sort of asking people to like your ideas or things in designing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very
Brilliant.
good.
Thank you. Is there any final questions, or are we happy?
Well, I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.